Yeah, put up on screen Suge Knight. I wore my Suge Knight shirt because we got beef going on today. Remember Suge Knight? I think it was at the BET Awards or maybe MTV Awards. I can't remember. He had on his red shirt and he told, Puffy and everybody to get Puffy out of the videos. Come to death row. If you don't want to produce it, it's all up in your videos and blah, blah, blah. They had beef. Bad Boy and Death Row had beef. We got beef going on right now between Kendrick Lamar and Drake. And today, we got some more beef going on between me and Stephen A. Smith. Oh, I cannot wait for today's show. I think Kendrick came out with a song called Meet the Grams, where he just, Meet the Grams or whatever, he went off on Drake's whole family and aired out a bunch of dirty laundry or whatever. We're going to call today's show Meet the Sham. And I'm going to go back over why Stephen A. Smith is a complete and utter fraud, and he's a sham. And it's all connected to a much bigger narrative. All of that today on Fearless. Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I'm Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Monday. Thank you for joining me. Awesome show planned for you today. It's just going to be me and you. I got some things I want to get off my chest about Stephen A. Smith. First thing you guys can do is check out extra Fearless content on Blaze TV. Go to blazetv.com/fearless. Use the promo code Fearless, and you can save $20 on your yearly subscription. Next best thing you can do is start pounding that like button, hitting the subscribes. If you're listening over Apple, hit that 5-star rating. And I want to thank in advance Good Ranchers. This show's going to be so good, I need to thank Good Ranchers well in advance because they're allowing this to be possible. Our good friends at Good Ranchers. Good Ranchers looking to lock in your price until 2026 when you subscribe to any of their boxes of 100% American meat and seafood. Use my promo code FEARLESS at goodranchers.com and save 10%. Thank you, Good Ranchers. We got to be good to you because you're very good to us. You're a fearless soldier. Support Good Ranchers. Let's get into my fire and this beef. Meet the sham. It's Stephen A. Smith. You know, I've been beefing with Stephen A. Smith for the past 3-4 months. I'm about to take it to a new level. I'm about to try to connect these dots. I told you this guy was a plant and a fraud. Today I'm going to call him a sham. Meet the sham is what this is about. And so Kendrick and Drake have their thing going on. And Kendrick, according to all the judges' scorecards, is killing Drake. Drake is more popular and selling more albums. But Kendrick Lamar, everybody knows, is, according to the rap world, he's better than Drake, and he's killing him. I'm about to do the same thing to Stephen A. Smith, because this all started several months ago when Stephen A. Smith called me fat bastard, and I went and read his memoir, and I told you all, in real time, reading his memoir, I was like, hey, man, something's up here. There's a scam going on here. This book is so farcical and filled with so many exaggerations and outright lies. There's an agenda at play. And I said to you all then, and many people doubted me, oh, Whitlock's just making it up. Blah. I was like, Stephen A. Smith has written this book, or whoever has written this book for Stephen A. Smith, Straight Shooter, A Life of First Takes and Second Chances or something like that. So whoever's written this book or helped Stephen A. write this book, the agenda is to run Stephen A. Smith for political office and perhaps the presidency. I said that in real time and it sounded crazy, but it's not crazy. It's not crazy at all. And as we've watched Stephen A. over the last few months keep going deeper and deeper and deeper off into the political space, people are starting to say, well, hold on, man, Whitlock knew what he was talking about. And part of the reason I came to that conclusion is because the book touched on so many different talking points and political themes, and he took all the right positions. You know, he tells some farcical story. Oh, I got pulled over by the police in Troy, Michigan, and they arrested me. I was $9 short on bail, and I called some black woman in Atlanta, and she saved me. Everything. It was Black Lives Matter. It was matriarchal culture. The two white people that were riding with him, he never mentions them again. I mean, it's a crazy, stupid, dishonest story. And then I pointed out, like, this story he's telling about his college basketball career and being BFF and like a father figure, or Big House Gaines was like a father figure to me and all this. I'm like, hold on, Big House Gaines doesn't mention Stephen A. Smith in his memoir, Big House Gaines, no mention of Stephen A. Smith. Stephen A. Smith is pretending like this guy was his father figure. It just didn't make sense. It just didn't add up. And when you read this many lies, you start, well, what's the agenda here? This isn't just about selling a book. This is about selling Stephen A. This is no different than Dreams of My Father. And again, when I read it, I was like, well, this is the Barack Obama playbook, and Stephen A. Smith is playing it. And so what have we here? I want to start by Chris Christie, the former governor of New Jersey, I believe, was quoted late last week. And Stephen A. has talked about he and Chris Christie are friends and have, there's a connection there. And so here's the former governor of New Jersey, someone who's run for the presidency on the Republican ticket. Chris Christie is quoted last week saying, either party would be foolish not to be willing to talk to him, talking about Stephen A. I don't think it's imminent, but he will run someday. I think it's more likely than not that Stephen A. Smith would run for the presidency. So that's Chris Christie predicting Stephen A. Smith is going to run for the presidency. And so now it's all starting to add up to me, or it already added up to me. I hope it's adding up to you. And I know many of you are sitting there like, Stephen A. Smith, this is just a dumb sports talk host who yells and screams on TV. No way in heck they would ever run him for president. This is crazy. No, it's not. Not crazy at all. Not if you really understand American politics. I don't want everybody to adopt my point of view, but I'm going to help you understand my point of view and why I have traditionally been so reluctant to vote. I plan to change this November. I plan to, but it will be very difficult for me because I think all politicians are pathological liars. I've thought that from the very beginning. I've thought that since I was a little kid. Ever since I was in high school and got on the student council and saw what kind of BS that was, I've had an aversion to politics and politicians because they're all dishonest. And lying is a requirement almost for a politician. And I don't like lying. And so I want to play you a clip that this is from one of the favorite documentaries I've ever watched. It's called Everything is a Rich Man's Trick. And I think Richard Connolly, I believe, or is it Richard Francis Connolly? I think it's Francis Richard Connolly. He put this together. If you've never watched Everything is a Rich Man's Trick, I couldn't recommend a documentary any more highly. Watch it over YouTube. But it's 3 hours, and I'm telling you, it's brilliant. It's powerful. But in the middle of this, and it's an explanation about JFK's assassination and all the other conspiratorial events that have gone on in recent years, but it really focuses in on JFK's assassination and has a great explanation of all the parties involved in the assassination of JFK. But in the middle of it, or hour into it, he gives an explanation about how Richard Nixon's political career started. And it's one of the most powerful. I've watched it over and over and over again. And it speaks to, would they really take someone like Stephen A. Smith and run him for an office as serious as the presidency? And so I want you to listen to this clip of Francis Connolly's explanation of Richard Nixon's political career. Play the clip.
But best of all was that the one man who might have been a check to their power passed away as soon as the war was over. And with President Roosevelt gone, and their first Nazi glove puppet Hitler also deceased, it became necessary for Prescott Bush to find another young politician to sponsor. In true American fashion, he decided to advertise. He placed an ad in the LA Times which candidly explained that a group of rich businessmen was seeking a young, ambitious, immoral and most definitely malleable politician who might one day run for president. The ad was deliberately worded in this cynical way because they knew that only an evil, slimy and completely incorrigible little creep would ever dream of applying for the position. That was what they wanted, and that was what they got, in the shape of a certain Richard Nixon. Here being congratulated on his success by his new master, Prescott Bush. And not long after this picture was taken in 1947, Nixon engaged the services of a Jewish gangster who was working for Sam Giancana called Jacob Rubenstein, a man whom the world would one day come to know as Jack Ruby.
That's the explanation of Richard Nixon's political career. An ad placed in the LA Times in the 1940s. And in 1947, Prescott Bush, who is George Bush's, the youngest George Bush's great-grandfather, or maybe it's his grandfather. It's his grandfather. George Bush Sr., H.W. Bush, Prescott Bush is his dad. And this documentary talks about Prescott Bush's manipulation of American politics for 50 years, unabated. And he just gave you the description of what they're looking for in a politician. Stephen A. Smith fits the profile. He's a pathological liar. Virtually everything about his past is fabricated or exaggerated. It's not just the 1.5 points per game. This man has serious ambitions. So serious that they had a book written filled with fabrications and exaggerations that Stephen A. Smith won't answer for, and no one in the media will even question him about it, other than me. So last week, Stephen A. Smith, the Washington Post, wrote a long profile piece on Stephen A. Smith. This is late last week. And the Washington Post, and it's all about his podcast show, his independent show, Stephen A. Smith, and it somewhat mocks him and somewhat. But then there's a passage in the article that stopped me dead in my tracks. One, because my name's mentioned and I'm in it, and I was just like, well, here's the Washington Post with an opportunity to ask Stephen A. Smith, who has this reputation as this outspoken, he's a straight shooter, to ask him about his fabricated and exaggerated book. But they don't do that. So let me read the excerpt that caught my attention. Stephen A. Smith's father died a few years ago, and before giving the eulogy, he went to see his pastor, A.R. Bernard. As Bernard recalls, Smith wanted to go nuclear on his dad, a man who had been unfaithful to his mother and was mostly absent for his childhood. Wow, that's not true. But anyway, Smith joined Bernard's congregation, which bills itself as the largest evangelical church in New York City, some 2 decades ago. Bernard suggested to Smith that he temper his remarks, citing a verse from the Gospel of John that urges balance between grace and truth. Smith relented. The article goes on to say, no doubt that he would have ripped his father apart years ago, Bernard said. I was proud of him for that growth. Smith did not take Bernard's advice recently when he delivered a tirade on his show about his former colleague turned professional antagonizer, Jason Whitlock, in which he called Whitlock a fat piece of shit. The story goes on. Naturally, it is currently the most viewed YouTube episode of the show's run. Bernard said, "I did forgive him for it." So here's Stephen A. Smith's minister saying that Stephen A. Smith, when questioned about the exaggerations and possible fabrications in his memoir, responded with a 45-minute profanity-laced tirade of name-calling, never addressing any of the questions that are legitimate questions raised in his book. The minister said, "Yep, I forgive him," as if he is God. And so Stephen A. Smith is a pathological liar, and he goes to a church or belongs to a church or is discipled by a minister who is a heretic, who thinks he's God and thinks he has the ability to forgive, and that he thinks it's appropriate to forgive someone for premeditated unprofessionalism, premeditated ungodly acts. So what you have here in Stephen A. Smith is someone who is comfortable stretching the truth beyond believability, and someone who is willing to pretend like he's pursuing a serious relationship with God. And he has a minister who's co-signing his charade, his cosplay, the game that he's running. Put the pieces together. Barack Obama puts out a book that most people that have really studied it closely say, man, he really stretched the truth here beyond belief. Dreams of My Father, Audacity of Hope, all these books are written by Bill Ayers or whatever. They're myth-making deals. Barack Obama attached to a minister, Reverend Wright, who's a heretic, who teaches black liberation theory, who isn't about saving souls. They're trying to do the same thing with Stephen A. Smith. They're trying to pass Stephen A. Smith off as a serious person who should be running for political office. You can sit, oh, it'll never happen. Oh, it'll never happen. Why would you think that? Why would you? Look at the history of American politics. In 1963, a president got killed in broad daylight. The government offered no legitimate explanation. And you think running Stephen A. Smith for president is a bridge too far? Oh, they wouldn't do that. Oh, Building 7 wouldn't fall for no reason out of sympathy for the other towers with no legitimate explanation. Oh, they wouldn't do that. Why wouldn't they? There's nothing that we won't go for. Stephen A. Smith is good at going on TV and going into histrionics and stretching the truth beyond belief. He's a perfect politician. And clearly, Chris Christie wouldn't be saying what he's saying. This book wouldn't be written if someone didn't have plans for Stephen A. Smith that stretch well beyond talking about sports with Shannon Sharpe or Skip Bayless. I love that today we're talking about authenticity. Love it. This whole Stephen A. Smith conversation, meet the shams, what a fraud Stephen A. Smith is. It all connects to everything we do on this show. We're authentic. And I couldn't be a more authentic endorser and promoter of Patriot Mobile than anybody in the country. You guys know I have my Patriot Mobile phone, have had it for more than a year. For more than 10 years, Patriot Mobile has been America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. And when I say only, trust me, they're the only one. Founder Glenn Story and his team have been great supporters of this show, which is why I'm proud to partner with them. Patriot Mobile offers dependable nationwide coverage, giving you the ability to access all three major networks, which means you get the same coverage you've been accustomed to without funding the left. When you switch to Patriot Mobile, you're sending the message that you support free speech, religious freedom, the sanctity of life, the Second Amendment, and our military veterans and first responders. Their 100% US-based customer service team makes switching very easy. I did it, and I'm an idiot. Keep your phone number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Jason or call 972-PATRIOT. Get free activation when you use the offer code JASON. Join me, make the switch today, patriotmobile.com/Jason. That's patriotmobile.com/Jason or call 972-PATRIOT. Make the switch. We have to have a parallel economy. We have to support businesses that believe in us. When I told you all, this dude is a plant, and there are powerful people behind him and manipulating his background and greasing the skids for him to get this position or that position. And I'm telling you, this isn't something brand new. These plans start years and years and years ago. But that's the end game with Stephen A. Smith, and that's why he's so upset and did this cursing tirade, and that's why the media. Could you imagine being a Washington Post reporter? You're sitting down with a media member that you're doing a profile story on, and he's written a book filled with stretches of truth, filled with fabrications and or exaggerations, things that could easily be checked out. You're a reporter, Ben Strauss, that's right there in Washington, D.C., that's on the East Coast. It's just a short train ride to New York. All this stuff that Stephen A. Smith says in his book could all be checked out, including his little midget best friend, Gary Stevens, who allegedly played basketball with him at Winston-Salem State. You quote Chris Christie in the story, talking about Stephen A. potentially running for president. But asking about his credibility, asking about like, hey, Stephen A., are you disassociated, distant from the truth? Hey, this is according to the Washington Post, your most popular show is you arguing with Jason Whitlock, who called out the lies in your book. Would you care to address any of those? But the Washington Post has no interest in asking those legitimate questions. Why is that? Because the Washington Post is in on it too. All of these media outlets that are allegedly the opposition, allegedly the arbiters of truth, allegedly the voices of the voiceless. They will look at a man who's making $12, $13 million a year, who's scheduled to make $20 million a year, who is the face of a major television network, who has ambitions that stretch well beyond basketball and football. He clearly has political ambitions. And a reporter would sit across from him and not ask any pertinent questions about, hey man, what's your problem with the truth? What's the truth here about your college career, this scholarship you allegedly landed? They're all in on it, including the media. And I know that's not groundbreaking, but it should give you an indication. Chris Christie, I know he's a rhino, Republican in name only, but he was a Republican governor. He's run for president of the on the Republican ticket. He's co-signing a pathological liar as a presidential candidate. This is all one big scam, one big sham. Watch everything as a rich man's trick. And I'm sure the documentary isn't perfect. I'm sure there's things you can nitpick about it. But it gets at an essential truth that people in power move their little puppets and plants around the chessboard. And it doesn't matter how divorced they are from reality, how divorced they are from truth. They just move them around the chessboard. And they call in favors, and a Ben Strauss or whoever they control at the Washington Post will write the stories the way that they want the stories written. And so some fraud like Stephen A. Smith will be pawned off as a voice we should listen to. And there will be people that will go for it. I'm going to give you some more examples. Stephen A. Smith, there's a reason why he's scrambling and on the run because, again, his plans for political office, and no one knows, because just like Chris Christie saying, either party should run Stephen A. Smith. And so there's a bit of a little wrestling match going on. And so Sean Hannity props Stephen A. Smith up on Fox News, and Rolly Martin and Bakari Sellers and D.L. Hughley and Matt Barnes and Stephen Jackson, they gatekeep Stephen A. Smith for the Democrat Party. So last week, or maybe it's been 10 days ago, I can't remember. I think it was last week, Stephen A. Smith went on Sean Hannity's show and made some comments about Trump's relatability to black voters. It's a very boring, innocuous, not a big deal statement. They've turned it into a big deal. Let's play that clip.
That I've ever had to articulate out of my mouth from a political perspective. But I got to tell you something. As much as people may have been abhorred by Donald Trump's statement weeks ago, talking about how black folks, he's hearing that black folks find him relatable because what he's going through is similar to what black Americans have gone through. He wasn't lying. He was telling the truth. When you see the law enforcement, the court system, and everything else being exercised against him, it is something that black folks throughout this nation can relate to with some of our historic, iconic figures.
That's Stephen A. Smith. Again, he's paid, what, $12, $13, $14 million a year to talk sports on ESPN. He's launched his own podcast, trying to get that off the ground. He's making time to go on Sean Hannity's show to talk about Donald Trump and politics. This is intentional. And he's trying to play both sides. I'm the man in the middle. I like Republicans, I like Democrats. I say some things Republicans like, I say some things Democrats like. I say things that he's playing, it's a game. And so these little harmless comments that he made on Sean Hannity's show has gotten Stephen A. Smith crossways with the Democratic gatekeepers, the overseers, the Negro wranglers, it's their job to police the thoughts of other black people. I couldn't imagine anything more harmless than what Stephen A. Smith said. But because there's a wrestling match over who's going to control the Stephen A. Smith puppet. Will it be the Democrats or will it be the Republicans? The Uniparty is having a fight over their next puppet. Half the Uniparty wants him on the Democrat side. The other half wants him on the Republican side. But they've identified Stephen A. Smith as important. Why? Well, because he's a pathological liar and he's willing to say what he's told, and he's good on TV. And he likes talking a lot, endlessly. And so here's Stephen A. Smith isn't really built for this. His skin is not thick enough, and he's folding, he's buckling. He did a podcast, I believe, last Friday, where there's a guy named Bakari Sellers that I think used to be a politician in South Carolina, had 6 years, I think, in the Senate, the state Senate for South Carolina. He's written a book. He goes on CNN. He's a gatekeeper. He's a Negro wrangler. That's his job now. CNN gives him a couple of pieces of silver to, make sure Negroes say all the right Democratic talking points. And so Stephen A. is crumbling and had to address it because Bakari Sellers came after him over this Sean Hannity interview, D.L. Hughley, Matt Barnes, Stephen Jackson, Roly Martin. But here's Stephen A. Smith, is SOT number one, responding to things that Bakari Sellers wrote in his book.
I tried to be cool. I really did. But so be it. It seems several people have had some things to say about some of my recent comments regarding politics. One of them is CNN correspondent Bakari Sellers, who recently published a book called The Moment, Thoughts on the Race Reckoning That Wasn't and How We All Can Move Forward Now. For those of you who may not know, Sellers is an attorney and a politician who served in the South Carolina House of Representatives from 2006 to 2014. In the book, he had some critical observations about me, about Ice Cube, and about somebody, let's just say I'm just not going to mention his name, all right? Here's some of what Sellers has to say about me. Sometimes it's people who look like us, the Ice Cubes of the world, the Stephen A. Smiths, and the other who will remain nameless. Black men who willingly disseminate disinformation just to receive a hug from white conservatives. Why do it? I don't know. But they remind me of Samuel L. Jackson's character hugging Leonardo DiCaprio's cruel slave plantation owner in Django Unchained. Wow. Are they really doing it for the clicks? Truth is, I'm still not sure why they crave the white gaze so much. But I would love for the early 1990s Ice Cube to write a rap about today's Ice Cube. I would love for the Winston-Salem alums to critique the Stephen A. Smith of today. Smith, Cube, and that other dude have become a staple of misinformation and disinformation. That they crave attention so much that they will push out half-truths and lies about black men proves one very important truth. The situation we are in is far more complex than we thought. It's a conundrum that we must be strong and push back against, whether the lies are coming from Russia or from our own. I'm going to touch on a bigger subject, but let me just pause for a second. That dude, Bakari Sellers, has a book talking about moving forward. And that's how you come at people. And you would look at another brother and compare him to Samuel L. Jackson's character in Django. What's your possible justification for that?
So that's Stephen A. Smith responding to Bakari Sellers. And to some degree, I get it. But at our age, we have to be above it and thick enough skin that someone like Bakari Sellers can't get underneath our skin. But I get where Stephen A. Smith is coming from. Didn't handle it the way I would, but look, as black people, we're not really free in America. We're not free to think what we want. We're not free to express any opinion we want. Stephen A. Smith made those very harmless comments about Donald Trump. And last week he took so much heat that he apologized for those harmless comments about Donald Trump because he had been gatekeeped. They had taken him out, given him 15, 20 lashes, and he came back and said, hey, my name is Toby. And this is a burden that black people are the only group that really carries this burden. Everybody else is free to think whatever they want to think politically without having their entire reputation, character smeared publicly. Everybody, if Stephen A. Smith weren't black, well, if he were white, they'd probably call him racist. But it's a tactic by Bakari and other intellectually challenged people. They can't debate the issues. All they can do is name call and smear people. And so if they actually had an argument of like, hey, why this is wrong, why, black people telling Trump that, hey, we can relate to you being mistreated by the criminal justice system, we have, argue the case and prove Stephen A. Smith is wrong in his accusation. Can't do it, so they just call him a bunch of names, and he's the Django character, and Whitlock and Ice Cube and Stephen A. Smith, they're all sellouts. We're not really free. And Stephen A. Smith wants to be popular. That's what getting in politics is all about. It's a popularity contest. When you're on TV and you're a slave to Disney and ESPN and all that DEI that flows through ESPN and Disney, you have to stay in the good graces of the Negro Wranglers. And so Stephen A. is being broken right now. And he's whining and crying and trying to make amends with people who have criticized him and trying to get them to stop. Oh, please don't criticize me because I said Donald Trump is relatable. Awesome conversation we're having today. I'm staying on the authenticity theme the entire show. I can't recommend anything more authentically than Jace Medical. Just like it was back during the pandemic, today we're facing drug and medical supply shortages in the United States. As of March, there were more than 200 drug shortages here, and it's looking like it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better. Healthcare experts have pointed to shortages, domestic production, and the Drug Supply Chain Security Act as trends to watch this year. You wouldn't think that things like this could happen in America, but we've been seeing it literally for years now. This is why you should have a Jace case. It provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All you have to do is fill out a simple form online and you'll have it there, ready in case you need it. There are dozens of add-on options as well, like EpiPens and ivermectin. And I want to stop here for a minute and just tell you guys my own personal story about ivermectin. Why am I a pure blood? Why did I not get the vaccine? Because I listened to smart people, and because when I was in my hour of need, when I had COVID, Dr. Zelensky was there for me with ivermectin. We have to take our medical rights and solutions into our own hands. We cannot depend on the government. We cannot really depend on our doctors. You're your best doctor. You have to work in conjunction with your doctor, and you need to be ready in case of an emergency. Jace Medical is how you do that. Jace Medical is empowering people just like you to be able to take care of your family's health into your own hands. Check them out today. Go to jacemedical.com and enter the code FEARLESS at checkout for a discount on your order. That's promo code FEARLESS at JASEmedical.com. And so here's Bakari Sellers, a used to be politician in South Carolina. He's responding to him, and then he's inviting 2 basketball players that stay high constantly. Their show is called All the Smoke. Neither one of these guys, Matt Barnes or Steven Jackson, they both, if not for being 6'5" and 6'7", they both would have ridden the short bus to and from school, and may have, despite all their great height. They probably did ride the short bus to and fro from school. Stephen A. Smith is responding to them and inviting Matt Barnes on. What are Matt Barnes' qualifications for questioning Stephen A. Smith about some political opinion? What's Steven Jackson? He visits O Block? But Steven Jackson invited Matt Barnes on, and he did some buck dancing and backpedaling for Matt Barnes. But let me give you a little context. Let's play SOT 2.
That podcast, All the Smoke, Matt Barnes will be on in a few minutes. Steven Jackson won't. Turned down my personal invitation. Didn't show up, didn't answer. But they had something to say on their podcast. Listen to this.
Starting off with, said blacks in America can relate to Trump because of, you know, the how he's being harassed and arrested and all this kind of shit, which is wild as fuck. And then he tried to go back and correct us and tell us what he said, or what he didn't say, but everyone heard what he did say. And the shit was so outlandish that motherfucking Shitlock agreed with them.
If you was on a corner with 10 brothers in your neighborhood, you wouldn't have said that. You wouldn't have had the balls to say black people relate to Trump. You wouldn't have said that in front of your people, in a room full of your people. You said that on TV because you're comfortable there, and that's the narrative that they want you to pay because somebody probably told you to say that. Bro, I'm not the most intelligent person, but I told you I'm first team common sense. That's why you say these things on TV. So that's why people look at you funny and don't give you the respect. Everything that me and Matt will say on here, we'll say in any barbershop, on any corner, in front of any setting, in front of anybody, because that's how we truly feel. Nobody's telling us to certain things.
You know, I was glad I took a deep breath and didn't immediately respond to a bunch of this noise, because it's just counterproductive at times to just go nuclear, like I'm very, very capable of doing. And I'm not going to do that now. In the case of Bakari Sellers, I don't know him. I know that I respect his work. I know that I respect what he strives to do for the African American community. He's a graduate of Morehouse. He's a graduate of law school in South Carolina. He's a highly intelligent man to be a legislator at the age of 22, beating a 26-year incumbent to achieve that goal. I'm not here to denigrate that man. I'm here to say that his denigration of me was very, very excessive. Matter of fact, so much so that I'm going to tell you that the person's name that I didn't want to mention, or I said will remain nameless, I'll say it for the issue, for the purpose of professionalism, Jason Whitlock. It was Ice Cube, Stephen A., and Jason Whitlock. There you have it.
They broke him. They made him say my name. They broke Stephen A. Smith. But Stephen, man up, man. These dudes ain't standing on nothing. Stephen Jackson made the argument like, Stephen A. wouldn't say at a barbershop or on some corner that black people find Donald Trump relatable because of his problems with the criminal justice system. What barbershop, what corner could that not be said on? You could, for the guys on O Block, they would be, oh my God, you defended Trump. Do you honestly think the guys on O Block care about Donald Trump? Think the guys in the barbershop actually care about Donald Trump? It's all a game and a gimmick. It's cosplay. It's a routine. It's an act. It's a stage. Steven Jackson is the one that has puppet strings on him. He don't care about Donald Trump. Black people were celebrating Donald Trump for decades in every rap song on the planet. Ask Steven Jackson, hey man, Joe Biden called and said wants to have a beer with you. Donald Trump called and said he wants to have a beer with you. I know where Steven Jackson's going. Or, I don't know, maybe Steven Jackson likes to sniff little kids' bodily parts. Maybe Steven Jackson likes to take showers with his daughter. Is that what you, I mean, Steven, I'm asking seriously. Joe Biden? Hunter Biden? I mean, is it Hunter? Yeah, Hunter Biden. Maybe you want to go do blow with him and knock off some prostitutes or whatever. But Hunter Biden does some really, really shady stuff too. But all this pretending like, oh my God, black people would be so upset. Someone said something positive about Donald Trump. It's all a lie. It's a gimmick. And as a man, but all these guys are pathological liars. And if Stephen A. weren't interested in politics, he would ignore these people or he'd tell them to kick rocks. He wouldn't be trying to make peace with two drunk, high idiots. Guys that are in their 40s checking in with teenage gangbangers. Spend most of their time high. And this, I don't even, and I know that Stephen Jackson's been more critical of me of late. I really don't have a great deal of angst or emotion directed towards Stephen Jackson. I feel sorry for him, to be quite honest with you. He's that intellectually limited. He's a 45, 46-year-old man trapped with a 12-year-old's brain. And with that 12-year-old brain, he's ingesting weed and ignorance at an unbelievable rate and clip. And Matt Barnes is in his 40s running around still trying to be the little hot, light-skinned tough guy. These guys are clueless. But this is our political environment and culture that we have a sham and a fraud like Stephen A. Smith, who's catering to shams and frauds and idiots and trying to win their support, trying to get them up off him. I want to play, and this last clip is why I am sympathetic towards Stephen A. Smith, and I say that in all seriousness. He tells a story about a woman, Karen Hunter, who was a friend of his and very close to him, who, sold him out and just abandoned him in a way that I get why he's upset. Let's play that clip.
Because you see, when it comes to people who touch me in a personal way, I have to be measured. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to confess to you. I almost cried a week ago. I'm not the most emotional guy in the world in that regard. I cried when I lost my mother. I cried when I lost my brother. That's really about it. But there's a woman by the name of Karen Hunter who has her own show on Sirius XM Urban View Radio, channel 126, every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. I'm going to give y'all some perspective on how close we are. I started my career at the New York Daily News as a freelancer before being hired to cover homicide for the first 4 months before I went to the high school sports department. The very first day I walked in there, somebody came up to me and wrapped their arms around my shoulders and walked me down to the newsroom and said, "I am here for whatever you need," and went about the business of teaching me how to write and how to be a professional reporter from day one. That was Karen Hunter. That was the year 1993. 24 years later, my mom passed away. And as my heart was broken and they lowered my mother's casket into the ground, when I wiped the tears away from my face and I turned around, it was Karen standing behind me. That's how tight we are. I have 4 older sisters. I usually tell people I have 6. One is a woman by the name of Kerry Chandler, who's the former head of HR for Disney, ESPN, the NBA, Under Armour, and all this stuff. She's an HR guru. Very, very tight. The other's Karen Hunter. That's how far back we go. And this woman, who is and will forever be my sister, allowed folks to come on to her show and attack me for hours because of what they construed I said. And I didn't listen to the whole show because it was the one thing that I couldn't take. Not because of what they were saying, it was because it was on her platform.
I love my sponsors, and they love me back, and you need to love them too. Cozy Earth. A recent survey found that 7 in 10 parents get an average of 3 hours of sleep a night in their baby's first year. Mothers, you deserve quality sleep, and I know just how. Cozy Earth. Discover the secret to better sleep with Cozy Earth's luxurious bedding products. And here's an exclusive Mother's Day offer just for our listeners. Use promo code FEARLESS for 35% off at CozyEarth.com. Cozy Earth bedding products are crafted with temperature-regulating technology adapting to your body's needs through all phases of motherhood. They use only the very best fabrics, materials, and weaves, offering superior softness that invites you to sink into a world of comfort. Worried about commitment? Cozy Earth stands by its quality and the longevity of its products. Enjoy a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty on all purchases. Built to last through the hardest days and the longest nights of motherhood, incorporating Cozy Earth products into your self-care routine can enhance sleep quality and overall wellness. This Mother's Day, treat mom to the luxury she deserves with Cozy Earth bedding and sleepwear and prioritize her self-care and sleep health. Head over to CozyEarth.com and use promo code FEARLESS for 35% off. After placing your order, select podcast in the survey and select Fearless in the drop-down menu that follows. Guys, I use Cozy Earth myself. This is going to be my Mother's Day gift to my mother. Today's show just makes so much sense. We're talking about authenticity, and me and our sponsors, we keep it real with each other. I'm endorsing things to you that I use myself, that I can sit here and guarantee you, Cozy Earth, it works. I'm gonna be real. I completely sympathize. I cannot make fun of Stephen A. Smith for that part of his response, because this is the emotional blackmail, the gatekeeping, the guilt trip that is played on black people specifically, black men in specific, to keep us in line with the Democrat Party and a liberal point of view. Stephen A. Smith committed the crime of going on Sean Hannity's show, and then he committed the crime of saying, hey, there are black people that actually find Donald Trump relatable. And for that, someone that close to him sold him out and participated in a conversation for 3 hours on a public platform, trashing him. And I'm sorry, there's many of you all that can't relate to that experience. I can. I can. And I got to be careful, but because I don't, but I can relate to that. Imagine being a journalist, a sports journalist. And imagine being a kid or as a young person coming from nothing. Father didn't graduate high school. Mother was a factory worker. Started out in the ghetto. Parents divorced. ended back up in the ghetto, college graduate because of a football scholarship, launches a sports writing career and stays in that lane, and then someone ascends to the presidency, and as a sports writer, you get the opportunity to interview a president and then have people as close to you as could possibly be close to you take a shit on you for interviewing that president. I can relate to Stephen A. Smith in that regard. I could go other stories unrelated to interviewing Donald Trump. But someone from my background who interviews a United States president on the Rose Garden, that's the American dream. And to have people that love you be so ignorant that they don't understand, to be that level of ignorance, to respond to their friends who don't understand, rather than supporting. I get where Stephen A. Smith is coming from. And that's why I say, again, as Black people, we're not free. There's a price that you will pay as a Black person for standing on truth, for doing your job at a high level, for having success in a way that the world and the culture doesn't want you to have success. There's only one way to have success as a Black person. You must be a slave to the Democrat Party. And that means you must sign off on abortion. That means you must sign off on same-sex marriage. That means you must get on board with the alphabet mafia. That means you must get on board with the destruction of the family structure that God designed. And there will be all kinds of people that will lie to themselves and say, no, I'm not on board with any of that. I vote Democrat for other reasons. I vote Democrat because this other group is racist, allegedly. So I'm down with Satanism, killing babies in the womb, same-sex marriage, transgenderism. I'm down with all of that. All that satanic stuff I'm down with, because, you know, those people over there, they don't drink Hennessy, they don't like my rap music, and, you know, they don't want my son dating their daughter. So I can relate to what Stephen A. Smith is going through there. And I have many stories that I could share along those same lines, being completely misunderstood, completely mistreated by people and organizations that I have supported to the highest level possible. So, in that regard, sympathetic towards Stephen A. Smith. As it relates to him running for political office, as it relates to him being a plant and a fraudulent person, an inauthentic person, a person perfect for politics, because, again, malleable. I want to play that Richard Nixon clip all over again. After you've listened to everything I've talked about today, I want you to hear that Richard Nixon clip again. And this is from Everything is a Rich Man's Trick, that documentary that I suggest all of you find on YouTube and watch. Be the best 3 hours you spent. I'm not saying it's all 1,000% on target, but man, it will help you understand this world and the the game that's being played on us from a political point of view and just from the media point of view, how it's all just a manipulation. Play the Richard Nixon clip again.
But best of all was that the one man who might have been a check to their power passed away as soon as the war was over. And with President Roosevelt gone, and their first Nazi glove puppet Hitler also deceased, it became necessary for Prescott Bush to find another young politician to sponsor. In true American fashion, he decided to advertise. He placed an ad in the LA Times which candidly explained that a group of rich businessmen was seeking a young, ambitious, immoral and most definitely malleable politician who might one day run for president. The ad was deliberately worded in this cynical way because they knew that only an evil, slimy and completely incorrigible little creep would ever dream of applying for the position. That was what they wanted, and that was what they got, in the shape of a certain Richard Nixon. Here being congratulated on his success by his new master, Prescott Bush. And not long after this picture was taken in 1947, Nixon engaged the services of a Jewish gangster who was working for Sam Giancana called Jacob Rubenstein, a man whom the world would one day come to know as Jack Ruby.
I think I'm going to end the show there. I don't have any more I want to say. We're going to play tomorrow, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came in like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on the corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, no deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.